And we begin with our top story this hour. In a dramatic escalation of US-India trade tensions, President Donald Trump has added conditions to future India negotiations. Reports now suggest that there will be no trade talks that are expected until Russian oil issues are resolved between the two countries. In fact, Donald Trump also denied any trade negotiations with India. Meanwhile, a sweeping wave of new tariffs from 10% earlier to 50% on more than 60 countries is reshaping global markets. In fact, markets are reacting and India is fighting back.
President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
From the Oval Office, President Trump has ruled out the possibility of increased trade negotiations with India until it gets resolved after signing an executive order which raised tariffs from 25% earlier to 50% effective 27th of August. New Delhi has labelled the move unfair, unjustified and unreasonable, accusing the US of double standards for targeting India while other buyers of Russian oil, China, Turkey, remain untouched. Prime Minister Modi has affirmed his willingness to bear the cost for farmers, fishermen and even dairy workers, citing national interest and energy security. Across the globe, US tariffs are surging. A broad structure of 10% to 50% has taken effect against more than 60 countries, with major markets like Brazil, Switzerland facing steep penalties for the same. The US average import tax now hovers around 18.6%, which is the highest since the 1930s. Global markets have taken notice on 1st of August. Weak job data, just 73,000 jobs added in the month of July, and even unemployment up to 4.2%, alongside Trump's tariffs, have triggered a sell-off across the Wall Street and international markets. Still, markets have recovered on bets of Federal Reserve rate cuts and strong earning reports. Apple investments have helped buoy sentiment, though concerns about inflation and supply chain upheaval persist. Analysts now warn that these tariffs could raise US consumer prices, disrupt global supply chains and chill economic growth as well. For more on this, our correspondent Siddhant Sibal, who's also assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, has sent us this report. Listen in.
US President Donald Trump continues to harp on the issue of tariffs. We know that earlier this week he announced a substantial tariffs of 25% in addition to the already imposed tariffs of 25% on India, making the total percentage to 50%. A strong reaction from the Indian side also came, and increasingly we have seen how the Indian and the Brazilian side, they had a conversation on this particular topic. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Brazilian President Lula held a conversation on this topic. Both countries have been having this imposition of substantial tariffs by Donald Trump. We have seen the Chinese coming out in support as well, slamming the imposition of tariffs and generally showing their opposition to it. This is an evolving situation, but clearly the big question remains as to how the conversation will go forward. We know that earlier this week the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said that it is up to India and the US to find common grounds. With video journalist Neeraj Patel, Siddhant Sibal.
And joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Suyash Bhatt. He's director at AFTI, which is the Academy for Finance, Technology and Innovation. Mr. Suyash, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. Trump has, of course, halted trade talks with India. Needless to say, India's response has been very firm. What is your assessment first up of where things stand at this stage?
So it's a very crucial stage because you're talking about world's largest economy trying to impose a tariff on the fourth largest economy, and from a trade perspective, if you see the numbers, I think $86.5 billion US is the export that India has. which is if you consider it as a $4 trillion economy, it's just 2% of the GDP that we are talking about. But from a trade perspective, US is the largest trading partner, and India will have to figure out a way to navigate this challenge. And I believe even the US team is going to come to India on 24th August, and that's why the additional 25% that has been levied on India would come into effect from 27th August. So hopefully, maybe this is a pressure tactic that classic Donald Trump style of putting pressure on the country, and so that they buckle down when the trade negotiations happen.
Right. Mr. Suyash rightly said that both countries will have to navigate their way through as teething issues still remain unresolved. But do you see this as a booming period for Indian manufacturers?
Yes, this is in fact a classic time for us to take this crisis as an opportunity. I think even yesterday the former Niti Aayog chairman also tweeted this, that we need to use this as an opportunity. And if we sit and try to understand what are we exporting to US, it's service, and what are the other alternatives that we have. So one of the top 5 trading partners is also EU. And we've already signed an FTA with UK. So if there is a way by which in near future we find a way to sign a free trade agreement with EU, we already have 83 billion euro worth of service trade. So service is a very important component for US export, and we need to find an alternative for that. So EU would be a classic fit for that. A second alternative would be the BRICS bloc that we have. So currently,
Yes.
if you take BRICS bloc, it's 26% of global trade. 5.7 trillion US dollar worth of trade happens amongst the BRICS bloc. And currently, it's dominated by China. 75% is dominated by China. And India has only 9% share in this. So if there is some way by which India could figure out a way to replace China or at least increase the market share in this, it's a huge opportunity for us. So I believe that's what the government is also trying to do. Their talks with Latin American countries, their talks with Brazil, their talks with the Gulf nations, UAE being one of the key trading partners for India. So these are all classic, second in line defense which the government is working on. And it's a very good opportunity for India and Indian manufacturing, in fact, which has a global presence already established, to take opportunity and explore these markets.
Yes, Mr. Suyash, important that you mention about the trade negotiations which are parallelly happening with the BRICS or even the EU for that matter, and the recently one that has been inked with the UK, the FTA, of course. But reports now suggest that India has paused $3.6 billion Boeing jet deal with the US. How do you view this while there is officially no statement from the government as of now?
So it's a game of chess, I would say. So there are only 2 big suppliers in the market, and Air India has already placed 100 plus aircraft order with Boeing. The second was Akasa and Indigo. And if these companies start shifting their orders to, again, this is an hypothetical thing, to Airbus, and that could be used as a leverage to strike a free trade agreement with the EU. It would be a classic chess move that you play. But again, these are all scenarios that we are discussing. At the heat of the moment is the government has to finalize these things and also make sure that you have a counter, just like China has tried to do a counter. It's not that only India imports crude oil from Russia. China imports the same amount of crude oil per day, 2 million barrels. But China is left out. Why? Because they have a leverage of rare earth, which they are using as a bargain chip, on which they are currently not being punished as severely as India is. So these counter moves are necessary in a trade negotiation. But I think there are a lot of options that Indian government has, right from defense purchase to Boeing aircraft. In fact, the tech companies which are making billions here, Amazon, Microsoft. So, there are a lot of leverage that even Indian government has. But I think they are very smart in terms of not posturing right now, because knowing the nature of Donald Trump, you don't want to agitate and make this go other way around. But at the back, I'm sure at the back door they must be having a lot of conversation, and all these options are on the table.
Yes, Mr. Suyesh, that's all the time we had on the broadcast, but point taken. Remains to be seen how those pain points are resolved in the near term. Appreciate you for joining us on WION.
Thank you.